Hi all, I just wanted to welcome you to the class one more time and talk about kind of our week one topics, overview of the information age. If we're going to say great ideas of the information age, we also have to think about, what is the information age in general. So this week's readings are designed to get you thinking about the information age, how it maybe differs from past times, how maybe this gives us direction for the future. Just overall, hopefully, sets the stage for the course and the thinkings and the directions that we go. So an agenda for the course is that, the reading, I guess I would say a companion to the readings, is that we look at the readings and I make a general overall reflection of the work. My educational philosophy is that, I think you have to learn critical thinking skills, so I'm going to present you with some materials. I'm going to pick out what I think is important, but it's up to you to also pick out what you think is important, figure out how to construct your opinions of the work, maybe disagree with what the writer says, think about how that relates to other work that you do. My favorite thing about education is making connections, especially between courses I'm doing or just ideas in general. So hopefully that will be something that you can do with these sources. So reading one, what is the information age? I'm never a fan of going and staying only with Wikipedia, but I think it's a terrific starting off point, jumping off point when you do have questions about what a topic is. So kind of reading the little blurb I have, Wiki is not a good place or a final stop or used as a single source, but a nice way to start the conversation. I hope you can browse this web page and get an understanding of what the information is, or how it's been described by others. One of the problems about Wiki is you don't know who the author is. It's nice that it's a collaborative author, and there are some checks and balances, but part of understanding how to read something is knowing who the author is. So knowing what their background is, if they focus on specifically computer-related things of the information age, it might be because they're have a background in computers. You have to understand how to read something. You usually need to know the author so you can understand how to read something. So that aside, this at least gives you a good introduction. A great source to read about, information and information economies, because I guess I will say, in the information age, we're starting to, or we have relied on information kind of as this form of commerce. We buy it, sell it, trade it, make it. I'm particularly interested in surveillance, so that's why I think it's important, and privacy because of information, because if we're dealing in this information, a lot of times this is personal information, and it's bought and sold and traded in order to make consumer profiles for us and to kind of create these digital identities for us. So anyway, it's important to think about the privacy and surveillance capabilities of information technologies, but that's kind of going beside the point. This is more of a historical look at different types of revolutions and ages and how we've evolved. It's also important to think about digitalization and digitization, which almost could be the same things, but one of them is a push towards, or is actually taking hardbound or physically present books and turning them into digital information, and the other one's more of a theoretical idea of of that being a desirable effect. Like, we want things digital now. We want the information to be readily available and shareable and online as a predisposition to do things. So one is kind of the act of doing it, and the other thing is maybe a more theoretical idea of it. So, but it relates to the information age because we're thinking about how we're taking, how we're using information and making it something to a commodity. But that's not the only thing about the information age, but I think it's actually more useful to talk about the information age as kind of like a third and fourth type of industrial revolution, which we'll get to and further sources. So that's reading one. You can kind of get the basics of it. Another reading that is like an introductory reading is this kind of a media read, 50 years ago, Information Age Began in Bell Labs. So this is kind of a more, provides you a picture of, sorry, I had to take a drink, of the historical picture of an important event that contributed to the beginning of the information age. I call it a media read because it's not necessarily this in-depth academic read, but it still offers a valuable piece of explanation as far as where this information age, like what was important, transistors, in the role maybe of transistors and kind of changing the way we deal with information and digitalization and digitized information. I also think that something to see is how organization, people skills, and being a good person can also be important in the development of ideas, innovation, and one's success. They're going to talk about a figure here and how he wasn't always a good person, so to speak. So it's also interesting to think as we move to week 2 how innovators and our role as people in developing ideas in this information age do play a part in our quote-unquote success or not success. Also, it shows the role of business and organization or project management is also important in how we take ideas, develop ideas, like the role of a corporation, and we'll also talk about this in the more academic article about where innovation comes from and kind of different stages of the industrial revolutions. So, but for this reading, just kind of like, a user-friendly read explaining a piece of history from a newspaper article. How old is that? 97? I don't know, a long time ago. 20 years, 30 years, 25 years? I don't know. Don't make me do the math right now. I'm already nervous enough doing these PowerPoints. Okay, so this is I would say the meatiest reading that we have this week is the Invention, Innovation Systems in the Fourth Industrial Revolution. Like I said, we use the information age, but I think that kind of overlaps with this idea of like the third and fourth information, or the third and fourth industrial revolution. I would argue that the use of the term information age is kind of peaking in the late 90s. I have this article by Castells in case you want to look at it, which I don't know if you will or not, but a lot of information talked about how we're in this boom of information age. But now as we've kind of gone past, I feel like we've kind of normalized the idea of information and information economies, and we don't use that word quite as much. I just recently returned from the Netherlands, where I was doing some grant work with the department I was there, and the European Union has put out this call for proposals. So, educational institutions, corporations, various entities will respond to this and say, you know what, you have this call, these are my ideas on how to facilitate that. But anyway, so they had a lot of calls that talked about the in Industry 4.0. So it's this idea that we're in kind of a new form of industry which aligns with information and the information age. And so we're going to talk about this in this article, but just know that I think the information age as a term is still useful and still important, and it's a great way to think about what information is and how important it is and how it's a commodity. But it's also, we've moved on towards thinking about that, that's almost normalized. Of course we deal with information, that's what we do. Now we're going to be talking about how information is changed and how we're moving in a different direction towards new revolutions. So this article mentions, or the particular part to pay attention to is, the characteristics of the fourth revolution as discussed. The article mentions how barriers of invention might be lowered, and also special emphasis of certain things like AI or robotics, but I'll kind of talk about this in a second. So based on the content of the article, the author shows that there are least 4 different, 3 for sure, industrial revolutions, and this 4th that literature is starting to emerge as. You know, the first industrial revolution brought up was, and you might have sources that disagree with this, but this is in the timeline. But again, this is kind of reviewing that article. We have the first industrial revolution in the mid-19th century, where we kind of took people from rural to urban facilities to work in centralized factories. And the idea of like an innovator was somebody that kind of worked by themselves and thought of a cool idea and was able to integrate it in some type of new fashion and brought these new ideas to the world. The second industrial revolution is positioned in the mid-1910s, where we have you know, more perfected, I guess, factories, the assembly line, mass chemical production. You know, everybody's starting to get electricity. So you know, the world's kind of changing, and we're developing more products and have it more readily available ways. I guess mass production kind of starting to increase. And then, but the interesting thing is, in each of these revolutions, the person speaks to how innovation happens. So yeah, the first one had those individual innovators, and this one talks about how corporate research and development programs were, or departments were organized, and how innovation really came from within these corporations and the development that the corporations would put towards their research. The third revolution that, you know, not that people are arguing that we have or haven't come out of, but this that I would think starts to align more with this information age is the semiconductor, or the one that began in the 1960s with the semiconductors, where costs were down and speeds were up for computing. And we, you know, have these transistors that you kind of will explore in other sources around here or this week, and the began in the Dell the labs, AT&T labs. I'm sorry. We have the different technologies that began around this time, and the digital spreads to many devices and workplaces, and most workplaces, you know, workplaces are using computers, they're digitizing their work. We are, you know, moving through a rapid period of innovation. Innovation is created through industry sharing of information, where, you know, like it's not necessarily one corporation that has, you know, monopoly, but, you know, the corporations maybe kind of work together, or they share information, kind of different industries collaborate. Innovators, if they are able to work by themselves, sell their ideas to corporations rather than, you know, developing them independently by themselves. And then, so the late 2010s, it's not necessarily clearly defined. I don't know if we've had that much history between us to be able to accurately comment where this supposed fourth industrial revolution has started. And again, the calls for the proposals from the European Union were also saying, you know, like, let us define what this 4.0 revolution is. So I think we're in the process right now of defining the new revolution. But anyway, so the innovation to market barriers are lowered with, you know, 3D printers and new prototype abilities. So there is more of it's not necessarily, innovation isn't as controlled by the corporations quite as much. You know, I would argue that it still is, but you know, there are lower barriers with new abilities to make things. There's also a push for AI and robotics, you know, which will replace some jobs and create new ones, where we automate things, have artificial intelligence to try to learn new things and kind of better products. We also see consumption and service patterns change. You know, like Amazon, there's so many options of products that we can have right now. We're not limited to the walls of Target or something like that. We can form new group identities and buy niche products online, and have more choices. So there's kind of a greater demand and also possibilities for different products and things than what was previously limited to the confines of a brick and mortar store. Innovation is also collaborative, and money can come from crowdsourcing beyond corporations. So I think that maybe kind of goes back to the first point of, we have different barriers to making things. So if you really want some type of a Apple Core or whatever product you want to make, and you have an idea for, if you have enough people want to support you, you can maybe develop this product somehow by yourself or something like that. But again, and also kind of the idea of like this is industry 4.0, where that might be what it would be termed, but again, it's kind of in development. So anyway, hopefully that gives you a nice overview of the different revolutions and how, our information age, I would say, kind of sits between this third and fourth revolution of where we've transformed information into a commodity, and we use a lot of technology to do so. So when you're thinking of a Unit 1 project, I'm hoping that you think about, what were influential ideas, technologies, what is useful about what can I talk about from the late 1960s on that I think is influential. So, and it could, to be honest, you could pick any technology that you think. If it was something older and you think it still had an influence on our day to day, by all means, do whatever you want. I'm just looking for an argument. All right, so reading 4, list of important inventions. Is this reading 4? Or did I have 2 reading? I don't know. The list of important inventions is that you, instead of, if you're struggling to think of something, or you're just like you haven't been familiarized with a lot of inventions and ideas or technologies, or it doesn't have to be a technology, it could be a theory, or something. Anyway, like I said, you could argue that something's influential for the information age. You can look at this through this site and find different ideas, inventors. Also, this is also a source to explore transistors. So I thought this was it's again kind of a user-friendly science kind of site that will hopefully entertainingly. This guy's juggling. If I could only juggle and make things more interesting, that you can see kind of like a description of the technologies of an information age. So moving forward, remember the past. This is my reflection. I wanted you to read all these sources and objects and things to kind of think about what is the information age. And I would say it's a period where technology, innovation, digitization have aided in the recording, storage, transfer, sharing of information, kind of created its own information economy. Also notice that trends come and go. What's really important right now might not be really important in the next 20 years. Information age in particular sits between kind of this third and fourth revolution, where we have innovation changing, and also it's important to notice that, yeah, like who invents things and how it gets invented has also changed and will change with time. We have individuals, corporations, selling ideas to corporations, collaborations, crowdsourcing. So there's a lot of different ways to get things made. As we move forward, AI and more technology is going to be more useful, more impactful. I think that's where a lot of you all in this major are sitting and kind of working with information and technologies. And hopefully, as we move into Unit 2, we're going to describe like the human considerations, human social considerations for use of technologies in our current contemporary age. Also think about new markets for consumers and products, and how like the fourth industrial revolution might also be called kind of industry 4.0. Think about how to innovate then. Do you, like for yourself, I'm going to have you kind of create an idea for Unit 2, but if you're thinking about how to make ideas come to life, working on things yourself, do you get grants? Is it the company you work for? Are you crowdsourcing ideas? Like to really think about, I challenge you all to really think about new ideas and how you make a mark in life. You don't have to make a mark, but if you're looking to make your life meaningful and you want to help people or just create something new, think about how to do that. I would argue for myself that I see the biggest possibilities as going to work for a company and having enough creative freedom to think about new ideas, and also have a work-life balance, so I have the energy and time to to think about how to make something new, but you all might have different strategies and pathways to doing things more with your life. But anyway, so this is my reflection. It doesn't have to be your reflection. Think about the articles that we read, and hopefully this gives you a good overview of what to think about, or what to use as a jumping off point for the sources this week. So thank you, and have a good day.